Oklahoma has now lost two major energy companies in as many weeks. Granted, they are committing to keeping a workforce of some kind in Oklahoma, but Devon Energy and Expand Energy are mostly Houston bound. Complicating things as there is a Tulsa tie in all of this. You may remember back in January 2021, WPX Energy that was here in Tulsa was acquired and merged into Devon Energy down in Oklahoma City. Last week, Devon, now previously based in Oklahoma City, announced it was headed down to Houston. Then yesterday, Expand Energy, previously known as Chesapeake, also said it was Houston bound. And the names of Devon and Expand join the list of companies that have also moved their headquarters to Houston. Names like Conoco, Kerr-McGee via Anadarko Petroleum, Citgo in the early 2000s, and Noble Energy before it was acquired by Chevron. We can even add Oxy Petroleum to that list, who had Tulsa offices in Tulsa for a while, but left in the late 80s and early 90s. And that's just a fraction of the list. Why does this keep happening to us? Oklahoma has a rich history of oil and gas, but does it have a rich future as well? Joining me on the program tonight to speak unedited is Texas Christian University Energy Finance Professor Tom Seng to talk about what's so special about Houston and not us. Tom, two energy companies in 2 weeks. This seems like a lot. I'm wondering, what are your thoughts on what's happening?
Well, obviously there has to have been a favorable environment for these mergers, Rick. Last year was a big year for mergers and acquisitions. At times I think there are companies that kind of looking and saying, well, wait a minute, how come we're not merging with somebody? How come we're not acquiring someone? And really it seems that growth these days is more about acquisition. And so, it's surprising. These are huge deals in terms of dollar valuation. But as companies look to improve their earnings, grow, this seems to be the method now. I mean, if you look at, for instance, the Permian Basin situation, most companies are doing whatever they can there. It's got a long way to go in terms of production, but there are companies that are, starting to shift and look offshore. For instance, a lot of U.S. companies are now looking at plays in other countries that have shale. So yeah, this is interesting. Obviously, for Devon in particular, right after the WPX acquisition that moved everybody down to Oklahoma City, Devon has that huge building. Sure, you kind of step back and go, wow, this is interesting, and especially that they're going to shift essentially their main operations to Houston. They're saying they'll maintain a fairly large presence in Oklahoma City. They're keeping the Devon name, which I think is smart. I think that's a bit more well-known and recognized than Coterra. Coterra hasn't really been around all that many years. But yeah, as Oklahoma residents, we always want to know, what is the impact on the state for this?
So we're already seeing politicians start to, especially because it's an election year, well, we need this policy, we need that policy. Did Oklahoma do anything wrong, or is this a kind of industry move?
This is an industry move, Rick, honestly. You could get a timetable. When I first saw this and I thought, okay, what's the impact on Oklahoma from a job perspective? Believe it or not, I attended the last International Petroleum Exposition in 1979. I was looking for work, and I went to the IP building and walked around talking to potential employers. That was the last one. And I don't think at the time anybody realized that was the big exodus from Tulsa. Now we're kind of seeing, what amounts to an exodus from Oklahoma. And that is more concerning. But, this is the way of the business. One of the things that I think actually has been good for the industry, not necessarily Oklahoma, but good for the industry has been that oil and gas companies have been focused on free cash flow. And they have for the last 5 years now, and they've become more efficient. I think they're making smarter decisions. I don't think that necessarily these mergers acquisitions are happening just because people feel like they should. Obviously, when you're talking about the magnitude of this acquisition, there was quite a bit of due diligence that needed to be done ahead of time before the decision was made. So again, the oil and gas industry has been extremely disciplined. This is not a haphazard situation that they're going into. The joint companies, as we say, we talk about footprint. It's going to expand the footprint. of the combined companies in the Permian Basin. And then also they'll have that large Marcellus presence, the huge natural gas play up in the Northeast as part of the Coterra portion of this. So again, these are business decisions. I don't think it represents anything in particular that's a negative against Oklahoma.
What is so special about Houston? I've seen the refineries myself and the ports. Is this because that's where all the action is?
I think so, Rick. I mean, I think it's twofold. Again, as you go back to, as I said, 1979, we started seeing companies drift. I mean, look at Amoco, right, which was later purchased by P. My God, we had an office building downtown. They had the what is now the OU Tulsa campus was an Amoco research center. There was a massive research center out east. I mean, Sinclair was here, Sunoco. There were so many that were here. Gulf Warren, which of course is Chevron. The slow trickle down to Houston, to your point, first of all, massive infrastructure. Okay, I mean, the U.S. Gulf Coast from Mobile Bay around and down to Corpus Christi, it's the world's largest corridor for not only petroleum refining, but the petrochemical industry, who gets their feedstocks from petroleum refining. So to your point, that massive infrastructure, sure, it's kind of, this is where it's happening. There is that. So as companies moved down there, then you had the growth of the financial industry within Houston, Citibank, JP Morgan, and others. So now you have this mesh of the financial hub in this part of the country, and this sort of accumulation of more and more of the oil and gas companies. And I know we do Zoom meetings, we email, but think about it once again. Unfortunately for Oklahoma, there's nothing better than the face-to-face, right? I mean, Rick, you and I could meet for a beer after work. We could go play golf. Let's go have lunch. Which again, I've always found that there's so much. Actually, I think it's much more efficient than using emails or Zoom meetings. Where you and I are talking, we can sit down, we can work things out. Not only that, I know you as a person on the other side of this transaction. So yeah. I'm afraid that there's a lot of it that to me represents efficiency in negotiations and relationships.
Does that mean we've often heard about oil and gas under our feet in Oklahoma? Does that mean there's none here left to drill or anything like that? Or is there still drilling to be done in Oklahoma?
Well, interesting. Yeah, there's still drilling to be done in Oklahoma. Interestingly enough, there are a lot of companies and there are, look, the oil and gas industry hasn't left Tulsa. We have, what I refer to as sort of the founding father family businesses that have been around for decades and decades. But you also have some smaller independent groups. They're actually doing the traditional vertical drilling because it's lower cost. But in terms of, a lot of investment in these horizontally drilled and completed wells, the hydrofracturing wells, the Permian Basin has just been so lucrative for these companies. It's a known play. They're drawing out. I mean, it represents the largest portion of oil being produced in the country today. It's almost a third. And so it's kind of, let's go do that known thing. Okay, yes, there's still definitely oil and natural gas under the ground in Oklahoma. But they're not saying we want to invest a lot in that growth. I think companies in Oklahoma want to sustain their production levels, which may mean some new drilling or some new rehydrofracturing type of processes. But no, it's not the winning play right now. All eyes are really on the Permian, absolutely positively.
Tom, anything I should, as a viewer, just keep my eyes out for? I mean, this has been quite rapid fire, 2 companies, 2 weeks. Is this a sign of economically a challenging times ahead, no matter where I work?
My concern again, Rick, is let's see what the numbers look like. Hopefully there will not be a lot of, right. Obviously, city of Tulsa lost people physically when Devon picked up WPX. So the question becomes, okay, how many permanent jobs will remain? One of the problems that we always know with mergers is, right, the first thing is when you have a merger like this, the combined entity is going to look for efficiencies. How do we start paying for this? We talk about accretive earnings. How do we make money on this merger to show the shareholders that we made the right decision? And we start looking at efficiencies. So 2 things generally happen. There will be oil and gas properties that the combined entity now owns that they'll deem to be non-strategic. and they'll just spin those off, and there'll be other little players who will grab those up and they'll produce them. But we also look, unfortunately, when we look at efficiencies, we look at any overlap in the two companies of existing functions. So like I said, my concern as an Oklahoma resident is, okay, how many jobs will remain in Oklahoma City? But to your overall point, Rick, it doesn't bode well for Oklahoma and the future of the oil and gas industry within our state.
Thank you so much for your time, Tom. Anything else you'd like to mention that we didn't touch on?
No, Rick, just, unfortunately, right, for Oklahoma, it's kind of another sad day in terms of the oil and gas industry. You would hope then that the government, the state legislators and the governor would be focused on much more diversification than in future employers. I mean, all right, we're seeing some data centers pop up, right? We know that that's controversial, but if we're going to lose jobs in the oil and gas industry, maybe some of those will be able to fill some of those job slots in.
Thank you so much for your time, Tom. I appreciate it.